Welcome to the second devlog video of the series. Last time we left off with the beginning of the story for the game, but in this video I'd like to try and repair the ship and get off planet into space, so let's see if we can make it. In the last video we left off with the player having to get materials to repair the ship, mainly just materials such as copper, quartz and stone. So let's get to work on those sprites so we can have many phases of depression when it comes to programming the feature to mine those blocks. Now that the sprites are done, we need a way to mine the ores. So to do this it should be very simple, and we just got to detect when the player is closest to a block, and when they mine the block it should just delete from the game. Yeah, so definitely not that easy. I've been working on fixing this feature for countless hours and nothing has worked, but it's starting to get late now, so I'll try fixing it tomorrow. Tomorrow is today and I finally managed to fix it. You can now break all the blocks, but it looks pretty boring how it just disappears, so to make it more interesting, I'll add a particle effect that explodes when you destroy a block. So now when you destroy a block, particles will explode into the air with the corresponding color to the block that you destroyed. This makes the game feel way better than before and a lot more satisfying to play. One thing I did forget to make was that when the trees grow, you actually get some oxygen back. So when I introduced it, I thought it would be cool to have a feature that displays the status of your oxygen levels as well. Now I'm moving on to making the crash landing look a bit better. To do this, I can change the sprite for the ship and make it look more damaged. Obviously I'm terrible at art, but to cover that up, we can use the particle system that I made earlier to throw up some dirt particles into the air upon crash landing. Now that it's finished, let's see how it looks. Wow, yeah, I know, right? After that sick animation, we still have to create more story for the game, so let's get to it. I ended up losing a lot of the footage of the programming part, like hours of footage, so I'll just show you the end result. So here is the end of the mission. This is the part where you repair the ship and take off into space. It still needs a little bit of work, but it's fine for now. And, well, the takeoff is, yeah, oh, we can do better. Okay, that is way better than before, but I'll probably add some smoke particles to it later, another time. So now I'm working on when you go into space. The first thing to do is delete everything that was on the previous world, so we can free up some space up for the new world. If we didn't do this, then it would be extremely laggy and we wouldn't have any room to add anything new to the new worlds that we will land on. After a bit of Stack Overflow later, we now have nothing. Of course not in a bad way though, but we now have a blank slate, which is much easier to work with and makes progress fly by, hopefully. I decided to take some inspiration from some pixel art of space that I found. And when I say inspiration, I mean I did make my own version of their image, and I mean, they don't really look the same. Please don't sue me. Anyways, now we can fly into space and discover other planets. What I'm thinking about for the game is that after we crash land and go back into space, we have to try and find our way back home by crafting and placing radio beacons on multiple planets, and try and re-establish a radio connection with our home planet. Along the way we will fight enemies who will drop equipment to make those radio beacons. This will hopefully make the game a bit more fun, so it's not just crafting and flying into space. So now I need to create a feature where you can select a solar system to visit. All these solar systems that you visit will be random and have different planets with different enemies to battle with. This entire idea about fighting the enemies for beacon parts could very well change in the near future, but that depends on if I come up with a better idea or not. Right now we're up to making the menu for selecting what solar system to visit, but I think I'll leave that for tomorrow so we have something to do. It's now day 4 and I started making the menu for choosing which solar system the player wants to visit. This was definitely the easy part, but I still have to do some fine tuning to the menu, and well, don't question me about the names I chose for the solar systems. I started working on different background art for 2 of the planets. I didn't want them all to be the same, so I changed the color and altered the terrain of them very slightly. Obviously I'll have to make a few more for the other planets, but we can cross that bridge when we get to it. So now I've got to work on the generation for the planets. I'm planning on making Udivis a copper-rich planet, so that should be easier to code, as I only have to generate pretty much 1 block. Next up, we have to be able to pick and choose what planet to land on, and now that we have generation, I can do this more easily. When we choose a planet, the ship will fly out of the screen, then it should enter the planet diagonally, and then rotate the opposite way to slow itself down. Let's take a look at how it turned out. Alright, moment of truth. Is it gonna work? Is it gonna work? And... oh. Alright, how about now? God damn it, I forgot to limit the rotation. For some reason this took a while, but here it is, an almost perfect landing. Now that we can land on planets, all we have to do is exit the ship and create some story for some future missions. Now some ideas that I came up with for finding a radio piece are something like you find the boss, then you fight him. I could probably work out adding guns to the game. Then once you eliminate him, you get a piece of the radio equipment. Another idea would be to find a piece of a treasure map, or lastly, I could maybe try to make randomly generated caves and then hide a piece inside of those caves. It could also be that you have to fight the boss in that cave, but this would be a challenging idea to add since I've never tried to do this before. If you guys have any ideas though, feel free to let me know in the comments. So now that we can land and exit the ship, everything is pretty much back to normal. Now I just have to work on story and decide which one of the previous mentioned options that I'll go with. So I decided to try out the caves method first, and you would think it's easy, but it's not. I created some code that looked like it would work, but when I ran the program, it gave me this error. If you don't know what that means, basically it's just saying that there is no block that exists that I can delete to make room for the cave. The reason there is no block is because in the last episode I had to make some optimizations for the game. One of them was changing anything below the first layer to be one singular block, instead of it being made up of different individual blocks. Fuck. Well, I guess we can't do that now. Maybe we can come back to this idea another time, so instead, we can make the boss fight for the radio piece to be the substitute for the cave instead. I started out by making a placeholder for the boss, but right now he's just a square and doesn't really do anything. He's kind of just there, like me. But I'll have to create a sprite for him as well, so he actually looks intimidating. After losing all the footage of me making the enemy sprite, here it is. I wouldn't call it intimidating, but it's pretty much just a reskin of the character that you play as, just mainly different colors, but I'll still have to add guns to the game so that we have a fair chance going up against this guy. Okay, so now that he's in the game, for some reason he's really small and floating, so... Now that we got the enemy all sorted, we'll add some guns to the game. Oddly enough, creating the shooting mechanic was surprisingly easy. All I had to do was create a class for the gun, then program whenever a player clicks, it adds the bullet to the array, then draws it on the screen, and boom, we now have guns that go pew pew. But I don't like how when the player fires the opposite direction the character is facing, it doesn't look towards that direction, so this can be something I can change in the future. So I need to make a gun for the player to hold, and I was thinking of making some sort of assault rifle, so I looked at some pixel art for guns for a bit of inspiration and ended up making this. So now I just have to add the gun to the game and make it follow the player, but when I tried this it didn't really work well, so I decided to make it joined with the player. This just means it's now part of the actual player sprite. It turned out to be a lot cleaner than before and works pretty well, but for the boss fight I'll be working on that in the next video. Also, sorry it took so long to post again. These devlogs are pretty time consuming, but hopefully I'll be out with another one in about a week. So thanks for watching this far, and I'll see you in devlog 3.